Good afternoon, Councilmember Allen and other council members. My name is Ben Bergmann. I'm an ANC Commissioner in ANC 3D with Commissioner Damiana. I'm testifying this morning in support of the bill, not this morning, this afternoon, sorry. Formally, we are all discussing a bill, an ordinary piece of legislation like any other currently pending before the council. But in reality, I would argue that we are discussing whether to amend our state's constitution. What do I mean by that exactly? Constitutions set the rules of the road, not for today or tomorrow, but for decades to come. And that is exactly what we're talking about today. This bill, if passed, will become a fundamental component of the architecture for our local democracy, shaping how we vote and who we elect. So my challenge to you, as you think about this bill, approach it the way you would if you were a member of a constitutional convention. Don't just think about 2024. Think about 2054, about a politics dominated by issues and ideas that we cannot predict, and featuring politicians whose names we do not yet know, politicians who may not even live in the district right now, perhaps because they haven't been born yet. The best constitutions, though, are informed by local conditions, history, culture, everything that goes into making a place distinct. To that end, I would suggest acknowledging the donkey in the room. DC is functionally a one-party town. The most consequential elections in this town happen in June, not in November. But just because DC is solidly Democratic does not mean that there are not strong divides in our politics. We all know that. But in a one-party state, the value of ranked choice voting is less about eliminating the general election spoiler and more about resolving the crowded primary lane problem, something that we heard a lot from the media and talking about presidential politics, happens in local politics as well, as we all know. Crowded primaries, they put voters in a difficult, and I would argue unfair situation. Do you vote for the candidate that speaks to you the most, or the one that is aligned with you and you think is the best position to win? How do voters even make that judgment in DC, where polls are few and far between and not necessarily reliable? I would also urge you to think about the broader context beyond DC. As we fight for statehood, we are not just fighting for representation. One of the key aspects of being a state is the right to be a laboratory for democracy, like the other 50 states. And it's worth reflecting a little bit on what that means. Being a laboratory does not mean working in isolation. It means thinking about one's role in a larger conversation. Adopting and implementing good ideas like free pre-K can impact citizens outside the district by demonstrating to others that the idea works. That's how public education spread in the 19th century. That's how no smoking in restaurants and public places went from a novel idea to something that is the norm across the country. As the number of jurisdictions adopt this idea, ranked choice voting, familiarity and comfort with it will also grow, smoothing the path for its introduction to other states, including, and I think this is really important, closely divided purple states, places not like DC, but they're going to be looking and they're going to be taking their cues from the momentum around this idea. And so that means that when you are deciding this, you should think about how DC plays in that larger conversation. Don't ignore that. Don't discount that. And I'll conclude and just say that I have a larger written testimony that I submitted to the council, but I don't want to go over time anymore.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner.